Hello everybody, welcome to the Sachsenring as we get set for the start of what's going to be a really important weekend from the championship perspective. We've only got 3 weekends to go now in DTM 2024. We're here and at the Red Bull Ring this month in September, and then we've already got the season finale coming up next month in October at Hockenheim. So it's crunch time in the championship. We come to this wonderful venue here to the east of Germany, about 20 kilometres from the city of Chemnitz, and this absolutely brilliant racetrack, which if you're outside of Germany or Austria, you might not know that much about. But if you're watching from around the world and you ever get the chance to come to the Sachsenring, do, because it's a hidden gem of German and European motorsport. This track, which is well known amongst the two-wheel motorsport community, because MotoGPs have been held here for a long time, and it originally hosted motorcycle racing back in the 1960s and 70s. But from a car racing perspective, it is also a brilliant circuit. It's kind of in the middle of an industrial estate. It's not that glamorous, the backdrop, the setting to it, but the track itself is mega. It's undulating, it is narrow, it is tight, it is very, very quick in sections as well. And the drivers love it. But it will be one of those circuits where it is not that easy to overtake. And that means that qualifying tomorrow morning will be super important, with the championship points, every single one of them at stake. It started out as a street circuit, this. It got shortened in the 1990s. It's now just over 3.5 kilometres long. And there you can see on your screens the current standings. We've already got 12 points between the top 3 in the championship. Kelvin van der Linde, Mirko Bortolotti, who's yet to win in 2024, and Maro Engel, who almost got his victory at the Nürburgring, but for a clash at the pit stop phase with the driver coming out on cold tyres, René Rast. And so Sheldon van der Linde was chasing him down anyway, and went on to get his first win of the season. And he's thrown himself into the championship fight as well, the 2022 champion. There you can see just what we're talking about in terms of the undulations at this circuit. We've only actually had 7 DTM races around here. First DTM race was back in 2000. Klaus Ludwig, a winner for Mercedes. We had races in 2000, 2001 and 2002, and then a 20-odd year gap before we came here last year with the DTM, the return to the Sachsenring, and we had a victory for Mirko Bortolotti, and we also had a win for Luca Stolz in the Mercedes. It was his best weekend so far in DTM. Luca, who finished 6th in the championship last year and the year before. Here, 12 months ago, he got a win and a second, and actually that was the last time we saw a Mercedes on the top step of a DTM podium. So it's been a year now since Mercedes got a race win, but they are, with Maro Engel, certainly in the championship hunt. It is very hot here at the Sachsenring, as it tends to be at this time of year. So all weekend long, it's going to be somewhere between 28 and 30 degrees. It's just under 30 degrees at the moment. It's fairly breezy out there, but the track temperature is already raging hot at 33.4 degrees. The format for the weekend is different. We'll talk about that in a moment, but let's introduce ourselves first. My name's Chris Hartley. I'm here in, thankfully, an air-conditioned commentary box. Thank you, everybody, for sorting that out, because we'd have been on our feet otherwise, or off our feet, rather, because it is super hot out there. But we've got the luxury of air conditioning, the luxury of a great view overlooking the start-finish line, that wonderful run-up over the start-finish line, when they come over a crest and absolutely charge past us at around about 250 kilometres an hour. I can already see a big crowd gathered above the roofs of the garages opposite the commentary box. And in the commentary box with me, as always, it's a very good afternoon to Brian Oliver.
Good afternoon, Chris. Great to be here at the Sachsenring. Been here many times over the last few years, both with DTM and GT Masters. It has never not been boiling hot. I don't know what it is about the climate here in Saxony, but it is boiling hot once again. And as you say, the air-conditioned commentary box is certainly an absolute luxury here today. It's challenging conditions for the drivers. Everybody's complaining about how hot it is out there. It's a circuit that's pretty hard work on the drivers. It's very hard work on the tyres as well. And as if that wasn't enough, they're running in an anti-clockwise direction. So that also adds a bit of a variable into things. What a wonderful circuit. Lots of blind crests, the massive downhill waterfall section. We are looking forward to what is going to be a really exciting weekend of racing.
Now, Brian, it's local time. It's just gone 3 o'clock in the afternoon. If you're tuning in from elsewhere around the world, you're thinking, well, this must be free practice 2, mustn't it? No, it's free practice 1. We haven't done any running so far today. And that, Brian, is because we've got a different format that the ADAC, who organise these events, are trying out this weekend with a view towards 2025.
Yes, all the while looking to reduce costs for the teams. A very, very good move. So a bit of an experiment as we see the cars coming out for their first practice of this weekend. And FP2, which would normally be at this point on a Friday, has been moved to tomorrow morning. So it's going to be the first event tomorrow morning, FP2. So this is the first practice session. So a bit of an experiment to look at maybe compressing the weekend, reducing some of the costs for some of the teams, getting staff in maybe a bit later to the circuit. And it's really good to see this. The ADAC always looking at ways, we've seen it with testing, we've seen it in lots of areas, looking at ways to make this more affordable for the teams and for the drivers.
Yeah, exactly. So it's essentially a 2.5-day format this weekend rather than a 3-day format. The idea is, Brian says, is to test it. Could we move to a 2-day format going forwards? Could we do everything on a Saturday and a Sunday, not do any running at all on a Friday? We've got a full course yellow already. Maybe that answers that question. They're all a bit sleepy, so they've gone out. Somebody's had a moment by the sounds of it. But yeah, can we compress it into 2 days of running, therefore reducing the costs for the teams? If you've only got to come for 2 days and you can reduce your staff bills by a third, then maybe that is a way forward. It would obviously compress things. And tomorrow, Brian, is going to be a challenge for the teams because they've had a nice, easy start to the weekend today, not going onto the track until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But tomorrow morning, they've got an early start. We've got an early start, 8:35 a.m. for free practice 2. That will run slightly shorter than this session for 45 minutes. But then they've only got, well, it's an hour and 20 minutes between the end of free practice 2 and the start of qualifying. But realistically, by the time they get the cars sorted and back in the garages and then have to get the cars ready to go out again, they're going to have just over an hour to turn the cars around between free practice 2 and qualifying.
Yes, and that's going to be a challenge because this is a circuit, as we've mentioned already, that bites. So if any of the drivers have a bit of a moment, and it's definitely a possibility around here, if they have a moment in free practice or indeed in quali, it's going to put the pressure onto the teams to do repairs and turn the car around to get it back out. So a poor free practice tomorrow could compromise the weekend big time.
So the driver that I mentioned has really come back into the championship fight. He went from 9th to 4th in the championship standings at the Nürburgring. Is the 2022 champion, Sheldon van der Linde, helped by a couple of brilliant first laps in his races because qualifying did not go that well, either on Saturday or Sunday. I mean, he only finished 13th on Saturday at the Nürburgring, but he won from the 4th row of the grid on day 2 last time out, and he's within 40 points now, the championship lead. To remind you, it's 25 points for a race win in each of the remaining 6 races. And then you've also got the bonus points from qualifying. You can get 3 points if you qualify in pole position for each qualifying session. So actually 40 points, as we look at Sheldon van der Linde now, is well within reaching distance. His teammate, René Rast, or one of his teammates, Marco Wittmann, had a very good weekend as well for Schubert Motorsport at the Nürburgring. He got on the podium also in what was then the 100th race victory for BMW in the DTM for Sheldon van der Linde. But René Rast went the other way. He was 4th in the championship. He dropped to 5th in the championship. He had an 11th and then a 17th in race 2 because he came out of the pits. He was looking good for a good result. Certainly on for a top 6, maybe better. Came out on cold tyres, and it was just kind of bad timing, really, because he came out at the exact moment that Maro Engel, who was looking to get retain the net race lead, came past on tyres that were already up to temperature. Maro thought, I've got to get past him because he's going to hold me up going into turn 1 on his cold tyres. René argues that he couldn't turn the corner because he's got cold tyres. He understeered, there was contact, both into half spins. Maro Engel then dropped to 2nd place behind Sheldon van der Linde, who went on to win the race. He might have won the race anyway, we'll never know. But it was bad news for René Rast because he got told to serve several penalty laps, and that dropped him out of the points. And because that was his 3rd penalty warning now, he's going to get a 5-place grid penalty going into tomorrow's first race of the weekend. So he's kind of on the back foot coming into this weekend, and BMW didn't go that well here at the Sachsenring 12 months ago, did they?
No, puts him on the back foot, as you say, at a circuit which is notoriously difficult to overtake on. And yes, a track that doesn't seem to favour BMW. Schubert Motorsport reckon they've found something in qualifying. They've struggled in qualifying all season long, getting the heat into the tyres, like that's going to be a problem this weekend. But they reckon they found something at Nürburgring, and they never really got into a situation to actually put it to the test. So they feel as though qualifying might help them. Well, they might be a bit better in qualifying with this, with some fresh approaches for here. But time will tell whether that actually comes to pass or not. But yeah, certainly Rene Rast is going to feel the pressure in qualifying, because he'll need to be qualifying really near the front, because that 5-place grid drop is going to really hurt.
Yeah, so here at the Sachsenring last year, Sheldon van der Linde had in the 2 races a 6th place and a retirement, and Rene Rast, in what was his first season as a BMW driver here at the Sachsenring, had a couple of 8th place finishes. And that was it. And then qualifying. I mean, they did alter the BOP for the BMWs as the weekend went on, and we kind of back to where we were in the end last year. So for the BOP this year, the BMWs have got 5 kilograms a heavier car, heavier BOP ballast than they had this time last year, which means it's the same BOP ballast they had as at the Nürburgring a couple of weeks ago. They've had a bit of a boost increase to the mid-range of their boost as well, but it doesn't bode, it's not any better than it was last year, and if it isn't any better than it was last year, the BOP for them, then you would argue they might struggle to challenge for a top 3. What's this, a replay and go through the first couple of sections here. This very twisty start, section 1, Jack Aitken going through. That is the run down through the big wide sweeping hairpin down at turn 3. Yeah, the positive note, as you say, is that Torsten Schubert for BMW says, you know, we think we found something, we tried a different approach, a different setup. I won't say what it is, of course. I don't want anybody to know. No. But we think we've sorted out possibly qualifying. It didn't show at the Nürburgring because the weather affected things, and also there was some real bad luck for Sheldon van der Linde, because if you remember qualifying on Sunday, he was flying and he was on course for pole position until the very last corner, then he went off the road. And the reason he went off the road was an ABS sensor failure, and the reason that happened was a tiny little pebble got stuck in the sensor of the ABS, which Sheldon said is almost impossible to happen. Yes. So the ABS failed and he went off the road, but he reckons, and I reckon as well, looking at the times, he would have been on pole position had it not been for that. I mean, he won the race anyway, but it does bode well for better qualifying, because it's been their Achilles heel so far this year at BMW, hasn't it?
Yes, and yeah, it certainly bodes well. The front engine cars do seem to have struggled to get the heat into the tyres. Of course, 2 of the BMWs, when the race comes along, have got the additional trauma. Sheldon will have an extra 20 kilos on board of success ballast, and Marco Wittmann will have an extra 5 kilos on account of finishing 1st and 3rd, respectively. So Rene Rast, the only one of the BMWs that won't be carrying success penalty or success ballast as well. Of course, they won't have that in qualifying, but that's an additional thing that the team will need to take into account. Riding on board with Kelvin van der Linde up over towards turns 9 and 10, you get a good perspective of the big blind crests here, and now he comes down the waterfall. I have to tell you, that's a lot steeper than it looks there.
It is, yeah. We saw a locked off camera before the cars went out, and you've got a sort of sense of how high up it is there, but it is incredible. It's the quickest part of the circuit, so they're touching 260 kilometres an hour down that hill, down there in towards the last 2 turns, which is about 160 miles an hour. You saw that Kelvin coming over that crest. They're just coming past the commentary box now is Kelvin van der Linde. That crest is brilliant. It's a really short, sharp, steep uphill section coming out of turn 13, isn't it? You've got to get that corner right, because if you slow out of that corner, it absolutely kills your acceleration all the way up the hill, all the way up towards turn 1, as we hear from Clement Schmidt now.
Make a gap think, so what a fucking idiot. He backs off in the last sector.
Clement's not impressed with. Actually, he was not impressed with, but he's not impressed with somebody. The colourful language.
I liking the fact the first radio message of the weekend, and we've already got money in this swear box, so 10 out of 10 there for Clement Schmidt.
It's another Euro for Clement. Now, I was having an interesting chat about the McLarens. They reckon they've had a damper issue, in that the whole composition of their dampers on their cars was wrong for the first half of the season, so they switched them, and they're hoping that they're going to be more competitive now for the last few weekends of the season. They've shown glimpses of pace, haven't they? Certainly had a really good weekend at Zandvoort, Clement Schmidt in particular, finishing in 4th place there. But the trouble with DTM is you've only got to be 0.8 of a second off the pace per lap, and you're down in last place. It's that tight.
Yes, incredibly close. It's very much a learning year for Durr Motorsport, isn't it? Certainly Rainer Durr was very frustrated he's unable to get the tyres working in that McLaren, but they're treating this year very much as a learning year. They're learning all their lessons. Their first year in DTM, the first year doing performance pit stops. So learning the ropes, very much in at the deep end. Would expect to see them perhaps benefiting from some of those lessons in the 2025 season.
Anja Guwen had all the bad luck in the first half of the year. He had a good top 5 finish last time out at the Nürburgring. So we're looking to go well. Had a Porsche podium here last year. Anja Guwen in his second season of the DTM, former Porsche Super Cup driver, former Porsche Carrera Cup France champion. The Turkish driver is a home hero back in his homeland, and deserving of some better results than he's had this year, really. Kelvin van der Linde, the championship leader, he's quickest at the moment, and he's on a quicker lap here. So 1 minute 18.704 seconds is his best lap time. Jack Aitken in the Ferrari has gone into the pits now, second at the moment. He's just under 0.2 adrift. Ricardo Feller, the second at Audi, is just about 0.3 of a second behind, but in third place. But Kelvin van der Linde, absolute best first sector, personal best middle sector, comes over the crest. He's about to come over the line, and this should be the quickest lap of the session. He's taken another 1/10 of a second off, so 1 minute 18.599 seconds for Kelvin van der Linde here at the Sachsenring. To put it into perspective, last year, Kelvin van der Linde in free practice 1 and Mirko Bortolotti both set a 1 minute 18.578. So very similar lap times, just slightly slower than last year. If you remember last year, Kelvin and Mirko both set exactly the same lap time as one another, to 1/1000th of a second. Free practice 2, Thomas Preining was on a similar pace. He was quickest in free practice 2 with a 1:18.537. Similar weather last year, same car, same tyres, so we've got very similar lap times. We should, in qualifying, get down into the 1:17s, though, the qualifying lap record held by Mirko Bortolotti. We've only got 1 year of GT3 data to go by, but last year Mirko did a 1:17.366. But that's on the pace for free practice for Kelvin van der Linde, for sure, 1:18.599.
It's a very relaxed and laid-back Kelvin van der Linde we're seeing this year. He's consciously taken a decision to step back from such a busy schedule and really trying to enjoy his racing once again. He is one of three South Africans on the grid for this weekend.
Yeah, because unfortunately for him, Christian Engelhardt still unable to return to the wheel of his Grasser Racing team Lamborghini. Had to have a knee operation a couple of months ago. We knew he was going to miss the Norris Ring. He hoped that was going to be the only round he missed. Then he wasn't fit enough to race at the Nürburgring 2 weeks ago, and he's still not quite right. So our best wishes to Christian. I hope he's going to be back in the not too distant future. But he's absent again this weekend. So that gold number 63 Lamborghini is not driven by Franck Pereira, who took his place, Christian's place, for the last 2 weekends. He's not available this weekend. So South African Jordan Pepper, who's had a couple of outings in GT3s with the Grasser Racing team, is standing in, and he's making his DTM debut. He's in the pit lane at the moment, but Jordan Pepper is currently going okay. He's in 9th place, so we'll talk more about him when he comes back on track. But good to see another driver getting involved. So Kelvin van der Linde quickest still. 1:18.888 for Jack Aitken puts him second, just under 0.3 adrift. Ricardo Feller 1:18.9, just under 0.4 adrift now. And then Thomas Preining, the reigning champion, a 1:19.043 is in 4th. Maro Engel, who's there third in the championship, 1:19.132, just about half a second between the top 5. Bortolotti is 6th, Guwen is 7th, Rast is 8th, Pepper 9th, and Nicky Tim, who's been one of the race winners this year, his maiden victory at the Norris Ring. He's in 10th place, and Thierry Vermeulen, who comes past the commentary box now in the Ferrari, has just popped himself up to 11th place as we ride on board with the championship leader, Kelvin van der Linde.
Yes, and there is the look of the very laid-back Kelvin van der Linde, who leads the championship by those 7 points. And this session is not just about the lap times, we always say this, but very much about getting a setup, finding the limits, just getting a feel for things. So important setup work to be done. Testing limited, so just the 2 free practice sessions, one this afternoon, one tomorrow morning on that busy day. But Kelvin van der Linde doesn't look to be too stressed. He would love it probably if it rained, because there's something about the rain tyres, and Kelvin van der Linde, he's found something with the rain tyres that's left everybody else baffled. And he's the one driver who seems to have really worked out how to get those tyres to work. But he's not going to have that this weekend, though, because the weather forecast is for it to remain very hot, just under 30 degrees centigrade here. All weekend, it's going to stay like this.
Yeah, so it's him down to about 130 kilometres an hour as he takes third gear, makes his way through turn 12. This is the final turn at turn 13, bit slower, second gear, 120 kilometres an hour, up this steep hill all the way through the apex. He would be then nailing it across the start-finish line, but he's bailing for the pits at the end of that lap. The consistency this year is as important as the wins, with it being so tight in the championship. 6 drivers have scored points in every single race this season, and it's not a surprise to learn that they're all in the top 7 in the championship. So Kelvin van der Linde, Mirko Bortolotti, Maro Engel, Sheldon van der Linde, Thomas Preining and Ricardo Feller have both scored points in all of the races this year. They haven't dropped any points, or at least had no non-point scoring finishes. And Thomas Preining and Ricardo Feller have both now had 26 consecutive point scoring finishes, going all the way back to the start of the 2023 season.
It's an unusual perspective. We just saw Kelvin van der Linde getting called into the weighbridge. I believe that's a random check, but we saw the car just going into the garage. You don't often get to see that on camera, actually. It was quite fascinating. We're riding now with his brother. You hear the roar of that BMW as he hits the accelerator. Sheldon van der Linde, the 2022 champion of the DTM, coming out onto the track. The pit exit on the outside of the circuit, making way for the car that was coming through on the inside. But again, you can see that downhill section. This is an interesting corner. The Castrol Omega, turn 3. A really interesting corner. To get right is quite hard. And then this blind crest, it comes up over the hill. And when you actually go around the track and when you walk or run around it, you see it is an absolute blind crest for the driver. And then over the top and then back down towards turn 6 and turn 7.
Yeah, when he gets up to speed, this gets quite quick as well. They're over 200 kilometres an hour through this section of the circuit as they're going to turn 10 before they get down to the really quick section at the back. That's a 4th gear corner. I mean, they're starting the top of the hill at 200 kilometres an hour. As always, the lap is divided into 3, which means we're able to keep a track of the lap time as it goes on. And just for your own reference, sector 1 obviously runs from the start-finish line. That takes in turns 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. And then on the exit to turn 7, at the top of the hill, the Kart-Hallen corner, that's where sector 1 ends. That is the longest sector. It's way longer than the other 2 sectors. So that takes in around about 40 seconds. It's almost kind of half of the lap time is sector 1. Sector 2 takes in turns 8, 9, 10 and 11, and that's it. So that's a very quick sector. And that only, at the moment, is taking them around about 17 seconds. And sector 3 is that back straight down through the waterfall, through turn 12, the Saxon curve, and turn 13, the Quekensberg curve. And that's it up to the finish line, and that takes around about, at the moment, around about 21 seconds. So sector 1 is the much longer section when we're talking about sector times. Just to go back to that point about BMWs needing to qualify better, and they'll absolutely need to qualify better around here, with it being a tricky place to overtake. So far this year, Sheldon van der Linde has averaged 11th on the grid, so he's averaged being outside the top half of the field in qualifying. Then we've got Marco Wittmann, who's averaged 13th, and René Rast hasn't fared any better either. René Rast has averaged so far this year 13th place as well, and hasn't scored a single qualifying point, which means he hasn't been in the top 3 in any of the sessions. The BMWs have only made it into the top 10, a third of the qualifying sessions so far. And those qualifying points really add up, don't they, Brian? I mean, this year, so far, the best driver in terms of points scored in qualifying and the best average qualifier has been Mirko Bortolotti. He hasn't won a race yet, but he's picked up 13 points just from qualifying in the top 3 on a regular basis?
Yes, unlocking the qualifying pace. As you say, it's not just about starting in a good position in the race, but the potential of picking up those points in qualifying. And every point counts. You can see how close the points championship is. Of course, it is conceivable that the championship could be won this year by somebody who has not won a race, because it is the consistency, not just in the race, but in qualifying that counts. And of course, Mirko Bortolotti still looking for that race win. He seems quite chilled about that. He's just thinking about the bigger picture. The important bit is to bring it home in the points in every session. Looking at Max Powell there, great perspective. Camera mounted on the roof, or on the inside roof of the car, looking back at the driver. He's looking pretty chilled about it. Of course, this is his home race. He lives about 90 kilometres away from the Sachsenring, so he's done a fair few laps around here over the years. And Max Powell, he's currently out on circuit. I'm looking to see where he is. He's in 17th at the moment at 1:19.693.
Brian, do you want to tell him how good he is at karting around here as well?
Oh, don't start. It was about 2 years ago I took part in a kart race here, and Max Powell was one of the drivers that was in that race, and he and Jan Marszalkowski, if I remember rightly, and I thought, right, I'm going to learn how to get around this circuit quickly, so I followed Max Powell. I thought, well, I'm going to just follow him, follow his lines. 2 corners later, he was a dot in the distance, and I could not keep up with him. And then about 20 or 30 seconds after that, I felt this big thump from behind, and he was coming around to lap me. At that point, I decided, yeah, I am never going to be a racing driver. I'm just going to stick to talking about it.
And Max hasn't forgot either. He reminded you of that.
He did last weekend, yes, absolutely. He's like, how's your back, mate? Yeah, no, it's still bruised from where you removed me when you came past in the kart.
Strange, because motorsport and karting is definitely meant to be a non-contact sport.
You think?
I must check the rules again. We've had 8 different winners so far this year. We had 12 last year, which was the second most in DTM history, but we've already had 8 different winners and 7 different pole sitters. Kelvin van der Linde and Jack Aitken have had a couple of wins each. Sheldon van der Linde, René Rast, Marco Wittmann, Thomas Preining, Luca Engsler, Nicky Tim have all won 1 race each so far this year, showing just how competitive it is and will be for the rest of the season. Max Powell then, his first full season of the championship, trying to push on in the Powell Motorsport car. He's basically the team manager as well as being the lead driver, the only driver for the team. That's another difficulty for the team, but finding their feet. They're fighting some much more experienced, much more financially strong teams out there, but they've also only got Max's data to go off, whereas if you've got 2 cars out there, you've got 2 sets of data, 2 different things you can try out on a setup and compare data, and 2 lots of feedback from drivers. So it really is difficult for them with just that one Lamborghini out there, but we know Max is a very strong driver, and you know, the one advantage for him around here, he's been around here lots of times in GT racing, in GT Masters, for example, hasn't he? Whereas, you know, it's not like the drivers in DTM have all been here loads and loads of times. We were only in DTM here last year for the first time in more than 20 years.
Yes, and many of the teams are running here this weekend, have also running in GT Masters, but unfortunately for them, GT Masters aren't here this year. But for some of the circuits, there is data that's able to be interchanged between the different series. The GT Masters, of course, still GT3 cars, exactly the same. Last weekend, GT Masters were running Spa-Francorchamps. Max Powell's team were doing a good job there. Simon Conoprim and Jonas Greif were racing his cars, and he was there as a team manager, so a very different kind of job for him there last weekend. These cars looked majestic around Spa-Francorchamps. Oh, how I'd love to see DTM back there again someday soon.
Well, nobody's really pushing in terms of out-and-out lap pace at the moment. They're trying slightly longer runs. Free practice isn't just about going quick on one lap. It's about getting a setup for race distance, understanding what the track is doing to the tyres, and how the car is going to hold up for 6, 7, 8 laps on the trot. That's what's happening at the moment. We've only got about half the cars on the track currently. Fastest driver on track at the moment is Maro Engor. He's just done a very low 1:20, which is second and a half off the absolute pace, but he's lapping in the 1:20s, and Mirko Bortolotti's putting a few laps together in the 1:20s as well, and overall they're 5th and 6th. Maro had a shocking weekend here last year at Sachsenring. He got battered off at the start of both races, and we're hoping that history does not repeat itself, because he is a real championship contender this year, Maro Engor. And he and the team had their troubles in qualifying the first half of the year, but they've sorted that out now. He's been qualifying well of late, and he's also been Mr. Consistent, fighting for points and podiums all the time.
And it was in turns 1 and 2, I think, last year, where he came to grief. And I think with this racing here at Sachsenring, surviving that first lap, and particularly in towards the Castrol Omega turn, is the first trick of the race. It's why they want to qualify out of the carbon fibre zone and get somewhere near the front, because it does tend to kick off on this part of the section we're looking at here as you go past the penalty box and in towards this turn here, turn 3, the Castrol Omega turn. Surviving that, I think if you get up to turn 5 in one piece and the car pointing in the right direction, you're in with a good shout at points here at the Sachsenring. But that's certainly where Maro Engel got caught out last year. And as we said already, it's a tricky circuit. Half of it is mastering the circuit, and the other half is staying out of trouble and out of those gravel traps. There is no runoff area on a lot of these corners, so you need to get it right. There's no margin for error. So you want to be running on the edge, but if you go too far over the edge and you're into the gravel trap, you ain't coming out again.
Yeah, you don't really even get a rest on the straight bits, do you? Because you've got these undulations, so start-finish line, coming out of the last corner, you've got to deal with that crest, that blind crest coming over that at approaching 200 kilometres an hour. Then it's a slightly downhill run, so difficult to slow the cars down with all the weight off the back of the cars going into turn 1. And then down through the waterfall, you're already hanging on for dear life, going at around about 220 kilometres an hour when you get onto that back straight through turn 11. And then you're dealing with going steeply downhill, racing, tearing towards the next big braking zone at turn 12, again with all the weight on the front of the car, the back very light, easy to lose the back end. So you have to be on it all the way around here. You also have to make sure, as always in DTM, you've got to get a good pit stop in the race. We saw this last year in race 1 with Mirko Bortolotti. He was on course for a podium finish, maybe better, and had a bodged pit stop and ended up finishing in 9th position. Because if you lose those places in a pit stop, very hard to get them back.
Another critical point on the circuit, the final corner, turn 13. It's a steep uphill, but if you can get a good exit from that, you can get on the outside of your opponent coming out of turn 13. You race along the comparatively short pit straight in towards turn 1. That gives you the inside line and a distinct advantage into turn 1. So a lot of the drivers setting up their overtaking manoeuvres out of turn 12 in towards turn 13, but it is a very steep climb up into turn 13 as well. So very technical, this circuit. Takes a lot of mastering.
On board with Nicky Tim, carrying one of the onboards this weekend in that 5.2 litre naturally aspirated Lamborghini Huracan. He's currently leading the GT World Challenge Europe Championship as well with ex-DTM racer Matthias Drudy. He's an Aston Martin, has been an Aston Martin factory driver for a long time, even though he races a Lamborghini in the DTM. He won, of course, at the Norris Ring, became a race winner like Dad. Kurt Timmy was a 19-time race winner in DTM. So that's him there with the orange wing mirrors on the Lamborghini. Teammate to Mirko Bortolotti. He can certainly help the cause with Mirko and the top two in the championship, Kelvin van der Linde and Mirko Bortolotti. And really Maro Engel at Mercedes with Winward and with Lucas Auer for company. They've got 3 very strong, very competitive teammates, and they could be a factor going into these last 6 races of the season as well, couldn't they? Helping out those drivers fighting for the title.
Yeah, in theory, you like to think they're going to help out, but of course every driver wants to win. And Nicky Tim, well, he got a taste of it. He won the Spa 24-hour race in conditions very different to what we're experiencing here this weekend. And he would desperately love to get on the podium himself. But yes, the team may well be calling on him to just help out Mirko Bortolotti to get closer to that title. Every driver wants to get on the podium, and you get that age-old problem of playing the team game or just going for gold really yourself.
It's not a good start to the weekend for either HRT or Manthey. They both received €500 fines for getting their admin slightly wrong and not submitting it on time for shakedown tests. So not an expensive bit of a paperwork error there. So ADAC on top of it shows that they are very strict on testing this year. It's been limited to 5 tests per driver throughout the course of the season outside of a race weekend, where you can only use a maximum of 3 sets of tyres. So they're hot on it. That's again going back to trying to keep the costs down. Thomas Preining, who we've been watching in the same picture shot as Nicky Tim, is currently second quickest with that last lap time, 1 minute 18.734 seconds. The Porsches are 10 kilograms heavier than they were at the Nürburgring in terms of the BOP ballast, but that still means they're 10 kilograms lighter than they were here last year.
Brining is on new tires behind you. Brining is on new tires behind you.
Good information.
With used tires, you are the fastest.
So they're saying, don't worry about him. He's got brand new tyres on. You're going quicker than everybody else on the older tyre. That's Maro Engel in the background there in the white number 130 car to, as we know, this year celebrate 130 years of Mercedes involvement as a brand in motorsport. So on the new tyre, Thomas Preining going well. But yeah, those cars heavier, more BOP than at the Nürburgring, but they're actually a bit lighter than they were at this event last year. And we all know Thomas Preining is still in the fight for the championship. He's had a sort of subdued year by his own very high standards. Other than that, great weekend at the Sachsenring where he got a win. He's only of the season at a third. He hasn't been on the podium apart from that weekend, but he's just drags points out of races. Even if he gets a bad grid position, he drags points out of the races. That ride height change increased the ride height of the cars at the start of the year on the Porsches compared to last year, which threw them a little bit. Something they've been trying to get around. It's also something that might affect the car around here, but you do not rule Thomas Preining and Manthey EMA out of the picture. He's currently in 6th place in the championship, 47 points adrift. You'd say he needs to stop closing that gap realistically this weekend to stay in proper contention, but I wouldn't rule him out yet. He's had a good start to the weekend here. The Porsche currently running 2nd fastest behind Kelvin van der Linde. He's only about a 1/10 of a second behind him as well. But then again, Brian, we never know who's got what tyres on and how much fuel they've got on board and what the real pace is until we get to qualifying tomorrow morning.
No, there's always somebody who suddenly pulls one out of the hat at the last minute going, oh, I didn't realise they were that quick around here. Thomas Preining will be looking forward to the next round. Of course, it will be his home race at the Red Bull Ring, and we're all quite excited about that. We love going to the Red Bull Ring. Fantastic circuit, always provides some great racing as well. But Thomas Preining, one of just 2 Porsches in this race, and only 2 Porsches, only one team running Porsches, unlike last year where we had other teams as well. It was interesting to read in the press this week that Lauren Heinrich is saying, my time is not done in the DTM necessarily. I may well be back in a Porsche someday, and we'd love to see that. It's also good to see Sebastian Ogier also saying he would like to come into the DTM as well. He said, one day I will definitely return. Oh, we've got that in writing, haven't we? He guested in 2018, and he's also guested in GT Masters as well. We'd love to see him here in the DTM.
Yeah, it's a bit of GT racing, bit of LMP racing as well. So he's busy trying to fight for another World Championship title in the World Rally Championship at the moment. Nicky Tim comes into the pits. We've got at the moment Kelvin van der Linde, who's quickest, Jack Aitken, who's 3rd, Ricardo Fella, who's 4th, and Maro Engel, who's 5th, all in the pit lane. Thomas Preining has remained out there. His last sector through sector 1 was about 3/10 down on what he's done before. It's still pretty competitive, but not quite as quick as he was going earlier on. Half the cars in the pits at the moment, 22 minutes, 46 seconds to go. On board with Ian Nguyen then, who has started finally to creep up the championship table. Best result of the season last time out in race 2 at the Nürburgring with a 5th place finish. He was on for a good result in race 1 as well, until it all went rather pear-shaped. Thomas Preining, meanwhile, completes another lap. His Manthey EMA teammate. And again, having only 2 Porsches on the grid, Ian Nguyen was saying to me at the Nürburgring a couple of weeks ago, that is not helping us. You know, we've not got the amount of data to feedback on that we had last year with multiple Porsches in the championship. And yeah, going back to Lauren Heinrich, he was very impressive in his first season in DTM. He's been doing great over in IMSA, hasn't he? He's currently up there battling for the GT class title. There's no clashes of dates, so he hopes to be back at some point in the future. But the factory, Porsche, saying that's where they wanted him to race North America this year. But he's still very young, still only in his early 20s. Got Jack Aitken, who races out there in IMSA as well, not in the GT category, but he's 4th in the standings. So a busy year for him. And then you've got other drivers like Kelvin van der Linde and René Rast and Marco Wittmann and Sheldon van der Linde, who race in the World Endurance Championship as well as doing some GT3 European Challenge racing. So busy time it is for them. Not a great view for Ian Nguyen. Now that is fluid on the windscreen, isn't it? That's either from his car or somebody else's, but he's slowed down. He might have slowed down because he just can't see where he's going, or he might have slowed down because it's his fluid. We shall see.
I hope it's for him that it's not the car in front, because that's his teammate, Thomas Preining. We're about to find out here. We're looking at the waterfall. No, it's happened already there. Let's have a listen to his team radio, get some clues maybe.
I think I lose the steering oil. Maybe more. Steering oil from.
Sent him off the road.
Steering alarm. Box this lap.
So fluid from, yeah, there you can see it coming up there in the middle of the picture, right underneath the windscreen wiper, coming onto the windscreen, and yeah, fluid onto the tyres, sending him wide.
Quite scary on the appropriately named waterfall in this case.
Yeah, they normally go to that at 225 kilometres an hour. So yeah, that's why there's a big gravel track there. And it worked.
Yes, we saw somebody testing that in GT4 last year, and ended up in the barrier as well. And there's no such thing as a small accident on the waterfall, so very pleased to see he's back safely. At the Nürburgring, we were in free practice. We were saying, oh, Arjen Canguen's having a really difficult year this year, and they immediately turned it around, was the top of all the sessions. But for the bad luck, he wouldn't have had any luck at all at the Nürburgring. But they found something in that car at Nürburgring. But we appear to have put the curse on him again. We were just talking about him, and now suddenly he's got a problem. It looks like his free practice 1 is probably over. Team will get to work on that and have the car back out tomorrow morning, I expect.
Yeah, Arjen Canguén out. His teammate, I can see from the commentary box, has just come into the pits as well, but he's not going into the garage, so he's up on the jacks at the moment. Thomas Preining. So the top two, Kelvin van der Linde, Thomas Preining, both in the pit lane currently. Jack Aitken has gone back out. They don't always do that much running, do they? The Porsche of Preining is now being wheeled into the garage, so he'll be off track for a while. Yeah, Aitken and Vermeulen don't always do that much running in free practice 1, but been doing a bit more this time around. Probably bored, isn't he? He's had 6 hours of doing nothing so far today. But Jack going well, currently running in 3rd place. He's done 12 laps, which is below average. I mean, some of them have done over 20 laps. The busiest driver out there has been Mirko Bortolotti. And also Lucas Stoltz. Not seen that much of either of them, but they've both done 23 laps so far, whereas most of them have done around about 15, 16 laps.
Jack does like to take it easy, doesn't he? He gave the team a fright at the Norris rings. 7 minutes before the formation lap, he was missing from the car, and they went and found him, and he was sat in the pits drinking an espresso. And he said, that's classic Jack, really, isn't it? And he was like, what's the problems, mate? But he has said he's going to be less cautious about his driving this year. That's what he said at the beginning of the year, getting a little bit more stuck in, not worried about scraping the paintwork. But yeah, both of the Emil Frey Racing Ferraris are normally fairly absent from the free practice sessions. They like to do their talking in the qualifying. Yes, he's up there though, isn't he? He's up into that 3rd place at the moment, 118.8, so he's only 0.3, less than 0.3 slower than Kelvin van der Linde. So clearly quite happy with that, because he's not out there putting in loads of laps.
Yeah, Jack, 2 retirements here last year, unfortunately, at the Sachsenring. He was up there, got a contact and a puncture in one of the races, if I remember correctly, which put him out when he was in a very strong position. So he showed pace around here, but didn't get the results at the Sachsenring. As we look now at René Rast, who's surely going to be a man on a mission this weekend, but they're up against it. BMWs, they've got a track coming up which is traditionally well suited to them at the Red Bull Ring, and Hockenheim, they can fight as well. The weather could come into play when we get to mid-October as well, but here at the Sachsenring, I think they're going into it with a bit of trepidation at Schubert Motorsport. But from René Rast's point of view, he knows realistically he's got to try and take points away from the championship leader this weekend. He's going to have to come from, at least the 3rd row of the grid, because of this 5th place grid penalty for race 1. He felt that his penalty was undeserved as well, didn't he? He really wasn't happy about that penalty that he got for that contact with Maro Engel. So, well, what am I supposed to do? I've got cold tyres. I wasn't expecting him to go around the outside of me. I thought he might have waited for a corner, was René Rast's point of view. I turned right, nothing happened, I got cold tyres. Of course I understeered. Why have you given me a penalty? So he was very, very unhappy about that. So I suspect a slightly fired up René Rast with nothing to lose, but do you know what I mean? He's kind of he's got to go forward. He's got to go on the attack this weekend. It could be quite an explosive weekend from the three-time champion.
Yeah, I'd say René Rast with his back to the wall is a very dangerous René Rast because it's when the odds are stacked against him, he normally pulls something out of the hat. And yeah, he was a grumpy René that left the Nürburgring. There is no doubt about that. But yeah, I think he's man on a mission this weekend. We've seen him out for pretty well the whole of this free practice session. He's done as many laps as anybody out on the track, and he clearly getting that BMW dialed in. But I would expect to see him with his elbows out when we get racing on tomorrow afternoon.
Good 6th place finish in race 2 last time out at the Nürburgring for this young man, Thierry Vermeulen, who's in his 2nd season of DTM, back with the Emile Frey Racing Squad, the Swiss Racing Squad, back in the Ferrari, and back with Jack Aitken as a very experienced teammate. Two seem to get on well, and Thierry has been impressive in his 2 seasons. He hasn't always got the finishes and the results, but when it's gone his way, when he's been on it, he's been well capable of fighting up in the top 6, and he's overdue a podium. That is something he'll be fighting for this weekend. We've got this great rear-facing camera looking through the rear grille of the Ferrari as well. You'll get some great shots from that in the races on Saturday and Sunday, with cars coming within millimetres of it. So Thierry Vermeulen, the young Dutch driver, in the bespectacled driver as he is when he gets behind the wheel of the car. I read an article with Arjun Maini as well a few days ago. I didn't realise he races with contact lenses, Arjun Maini. He says, that's an essential item for me. I can't see what I'm doing without them. So he races with contacts. Always likes to bring his iPad along for a bit of R&R in between sessions at the end of a day, just to relax, and the headphones just to kind of relax and get away from it all. Arjun was on a great run of point-scoring finishes until the Nürburgring as well. He's having a good season. He dropped back a bit in the pack in terms of the championship standings at the Nürburgring. He was running in the top 5. He's suddenly down to 10th place because he only got 1 point-scoring finish, a 10th place in race 1 at the Nürburgring.
Yeah, it's been great to see him find a bit of form this year. And yeah, the issue with wearing glasses, we saw with Thierry Vermeulen, just as an additional challenge for some of these drivers. Okay, in conditions like this, but less so when it's wet and things are steaming up. As someone who wears glasses myself, I sympathise. I'm just looking across at the Abt Sportsline garage from where our commentary position is, and the team are all been doing exercises and limbering up. I get the feeling they're about to get a rehearsal pit stop from them. A workout for all the teams. The pit stops absolutely critical here, and at a track that notoriously is very hard on tyres. The surface here is very abrasive, and it is very much known as a tyre-eating circuit. Getting the tyre strategy right is going to be pretty critical. The crews are going to be playing a vital part as well. We've seen many a race won or lost through the pit stop sequence. Riding down the waterfall on board with Max Au in the Lamborghini, looking pretty chilled at the moment.
Not sure we chilled at 260 kilometres now, but I know what you mean. He's in his office, isn't he?
Yes.
Pit stop challenge is something we don't talk always about, but there is a separate championship for the teams. So the fastest pit stop in each race earns the team 3 points. 2 points for the second quickest and a point for the third quickest. And at the moment, Winward Racing are leading the pit stop challenge. They've had 18 points so far this season. They've actually, in all but 2 races, so 8 out of the 10 races, they've had a top 3 quickest pit stop, which is why they're up there. Manthey EMA, you actually remember the start of last season, had a couple of difficult pit stops, didn't they? Particularly at Oschersleben, which cost Thomas Preining potentially a race win there. He won the championship anyway, but they have now sorted their pit stops out properly this year. They are second on 16 points. They've been quickest twice, second quickest 4 times, third quickest another couple of times, and Schubert are third on 15 points. The quickest pit stops that we have had across the course of the season have been 6.3 second pit stops, but for McLaren that's something they need to work on. So Ben Durr and Clement Schmidt generally lose out in the pit stops. The quickest stop for Ben Durr, this is stationary time, has been 8.6 seconds, which is a couple of seconds off it really, and for Clement Schmidt it's had 7.1 second, but there must have been 8 or 9 second pit stop. So you're giving away 2 or 3 seconds in a pit stop. Bearing in mind, if you're 0.2 of a second quicker than everybody, that's still 5 laps just to get 1 of those seconds back. So you lose 3 seconds. It's 15 laps of a race just to get back the time you've lost.
Yes, a lot of pressure.
If you're 2 tenths quicker.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a lot of pressure. As we look at the Jordan Pepper garage, the car is still parked up in the garage there at the moment. But the pit stops don't only have to be quick, they are very heavily regulated as well, as you already mentioned. There were points lost last year at the beginning of the season by Manthey EMA. You cannot spin the wheels when the car's on the jacks. That's a big no-no. The rear wheels have to be changed first, the front wheels second. Everything is very heavily regulated. It's all about safety, all about fairness, but it's the only formula in the ADAC catalogue that has a performance pit stop, and it certainly adds a really fascinating side to the racing.
Well, Clement Schmidt celebrated his birthday, didn't he, on day 2 at the Nürburgring, and didn't even get to the end of the formation lap before the car developed an issue, and he didn't get to start the race. So he was a spectator for the entire race, unfortunately. Hopefully, the Austrian has a better time of it here at the Sachsenring. Looking good so far. 5th quickest. I know it's only free practice. I know we don't know what the real pace is, but that's encouraging. 1 minute 19.115 for Clement Schmidt. The McLaren is half a second off the fastest time. Bender has done a 1:19.6. That's only half a second behind Clement Schmidt, but one of them is 5th and one of them is last, which again shows how competitive it is. 9 tenths of a second covering the top 16. And I'm sure that gap will get even tighter and tighter as we get to qualifying tomorrow morning. Thomas Preining back on track. Kelvin van der Linde still in the pits. And Ricardo Feller, both been in for a while now. So they're not been so busy, have they? Kelvin's actually only done 14 laps of the session. Only a couple of drivers have been less busy. One of them is Jack Aitken, who's done 13. There's also been 13 laps for Luca Engstler. But apart from those two, 14 laps, one of the fewest accumulated laps in free practice one for Kelvin van der Linde, which I guess shows he's confident, he's happy with everything. Okay, we don't need to keep pounding around. We're happy with that. We know what we're doing. We've got a good lap time. Let's save our energy for the thing that really counts tomorrow morning, which is going to be setting things up in free practice too, going for it in qualifying.
Yeah, it gives out a very positive message, actually, doesn't it? Why be out on track, putting pressure on the machinery, risking the machinery as well in this heat? If you've got a good setup and you're comfortable with it, then probably job done for the time being. Having said that, tomorrow's free practice may be more significant than your average free practice too, because it will be coming shortly before qualifying, so the conditions are likely to be quite similar, whereas normally we see 2 free practice sessions on the Friday, and quite often the weather conditions on the Saturday morning don't resemble the Friday sessions at all. So we might have a fairly busy FP2 tomorrow morning, because they will be able to get a qualifying setup that's probably fairly on the money to go straight to qualifying with the same setup.
We watched the Lamborghini of Luca Engstler, winner at Oschersleben, on the podium at the Norris Ring, and here's another Lamborghini, the TGI-sponsored Grasser racing team. TGI work in the gold business, hence the gold livery on the car. It's the main sponsor of that car, but it's Gottfried Grasser's team, the Grasser racing team, that run both of them. Liquid Moly sponsorship on the car of Luca Engstler in his 2nd season of the championship. And so out on the track, our first time to see him properly is Jordan Pepper, who was running in the top 10. Others have gone past him while he's been in the pits, but he's gone back out. He's in the number 63 Lamborghini, and he's currently in 12th place, the South African. So we'll see how he gets on. And we go from Lamborghini to Lamborghini to Lamborghini, because we're on board here now with Nicky Tim, who's just set a personal best 2nd sector. Now, that's only a short sector, as I mentioned earlier on. It's the shortest sector. But in sector 1, he was only 4 tenths off the absolute best sector time around there. So he's comparable this with his best lap of the session so far. He's already just got himself up to 10th place, and this could be a slightly quicker lap for Nicky Tim if the last sector has been good, which it is, and he goes 4th quickest, so 1:18.939 for the Dane, for the Great Viking.
Yes, and he keeps on. Looks like he's trying for another lap straight afterwards as well. Just going back to Jordan Pepper, the last time I saw him here, he was in GT Masters driving a big old Bentley. That's something a bit different that he's in here now. That must have been back in about 2020, I think it was. It was good to see him then. It's great to have him back in the DTM, have him in the DTM, back in the ADAC fold. Certainly fulfilling a dream of his to be starting a DTM race.
Nicky Tim properly wrestling that SSR Performance Lamborghini around the first sector. 41.219 seconds. He's kind of where he was about a tenth slower than he was on the previous lap, so not quite as quick as you'd expect. A bit wide there for Marco Wittmann, the two-time champion. A very good weekend at the Nürburgring last time out with a podium finish, a top 6 in the other race. A driver that was making great progress through the pack. So Marco goes 7th quickest with that, 119.117. It feels like they're going out there now trying the sort of one-lap pace, and rather than setting up for longer runs, they're using the last 6 or 7 minutes of the session to see what a qualifying type run might be like, even though the majority of them are probably on older tyres, hence the lap time's been probably about a second away from what we will get in qualifying. See in the background there, Sheldon van der Linde has gone back out as well. There's Arjun Maini, who we talked about a few moments ago, dropped to 10th in the championship after it was only a bad weekend of the season really at the Nürburgring last time out. But Arjun, he's on a good lap here compared to where he's been before. He's still 2.5 seconds off the overall pace, but HRT driver pushing on in that blue and yellow Mercedes. The Indian driver makes his way through turn 1. You can see the circuit really falls away and it drops downhill until you get to this corner really, down at turn 3, the Castrol curve, which is only 85 kilometres an hour through there. Jordan Pepper, meanwhile, goes through the shot. Reunited, I mean, he's good friends with both of the van der Lindes. They've known each other for years and years, but he actually used to race against Kelvin van der Linde back in the VW Sirocco R Cup. You remember that was a support series for a good number of years to DTM. And he finished 3rd, Jordan Pepper, the year that Kelvin won it, which was over 10 years ago now. So they've been reunited. In fact, it was the Polo Cup they both raced in. The VW Polo Cup in South Africa. They raced together in that. Kelvin won it, Jordan was 3rd, and then Kelvin came to Europe, raced in the Sirocco R Cup and won it. That was the first time we'd seen him in Europe, really. And then the year after that, Jordan Pepper came into the Sirocco R Cup, and he won it in 2014. So they both kind of came up through the same route from VW Polo Cup racing in South Africa to VW Sirocco R Cup racing as their first exploits into Europe, really. But it's great to see them kind of finally properly reunited. I mean, they raced together in events before, not as teammates, but they both, for example, have been stalwarts of the Nürburgring 24-hour race. But crossing paths occasionally, now back in the DTM, properly racing against one another.
That's some very quick drivers coming out of South Africa, aren't they? That's great to have 3 of them on the grid. We're talking about Kwanda Mokoena last weekend. He's in the GT Masters. He has aspirations to be on this grid one day as well. So some very quick drivers coming out of South Africa. What they're doing there, they're training well, aren't they?
Yeah, Leighton Fury as well, GT4 race.
Of course, yes, of course.
The BMW M2 Cup last year. Absolutely, great to see them coming through. And yeah, some names to watch in the next few years for sure. Lucas Auer, we have been watching in a Mamba livery car, went quicker than it went before on the last lap, and he's got even quicker on this lap. So he went up to 6, he's now up to 3rd with that, 1 minute 18.862 seconds for Lucas Auer, 2nd in the championship in 2022. It's had a kind of not the greatest of years this year, but he'll be thereabouts at some point. Don't worry about that. He's a great driver, is Lucas Auer. Jordan Pepper gets himself up to 8th place. This is good effort, isn't it? 1 minute 19.112.
We were saying this yesterday. The 63 pilot, Christian Egerhardt, that's who it is, is going to be looking on. He's going to be very frustrated because he's seen Frank Pereira take a podium at the Norris Ring, and he'll see Jordan Pepper doing well here. His feet must be itching. I should think he is incredibly frustrated as he's watching this, and he'll see Jordan Pepper in his car going up to P8 and thinking, I could be doing this. Get well soon, Christian. Hope to see you back soon. But it's really nice. It has been great to see Frank Pereira back on the grid, and it's really nice to see Jordan Pepper on the grid for DTM this year as well. Yeah,
car looks like it's in a good place. Kelvin van der Linde is clearly not going back out, so that's his onboard camera, and it's been in the garage for quite some time now. We saw before that his brother Sheldon van der Linde out there on track, but he's improved, but only up to 15th place in the session with a 119.283. That said, he's only nearly 7/10 of a second off the absolute pace. 7/10 of a second covering the top 17 now. It's not a lot, is it, around a 3.5 kilometre long lap. And here is the third of the trio of South Africans. Going to be another good lap this for Jordan Pepper. Over the line he goes. Doesn't quite surpass what he did before, but in fact, no, he does. 1:19.112. He stays 8th, but that's actually slightly quicker than the lap before that. So top 8, 2 consistent lap times to show it wasn't a fluke. And there's only 0.03 of a second between him and Clement Schmidt, and there's only another 0.02 back is Marco Wittmann. There's a cloud of smoke there in the pit lane, I can see. And just going through that now to come into the pits is Ricardo Feller. I don't think it was his issue, though.
Whoa, light up the tyres!
That's where the smoke's coming from. It's like hooligan Marco Wittmann. That's more than tyre warming. I mean, come on, that is a burnout of all burnouts. I could hear that. I've got headphones on, and I could hear that through the commentary box wall. Testing the tyres and the transmission on that BMW, the drive shaft and everything. Marco Wittmann, leaving his mark in the pit lane. It's safe to say.
Lane rubber, I think they call it, don't they?
Absolutely, yeah. So he's got the surface layer off there and sorted before he even gets onto the track. On board with Nicky Tim, goes through the cloud of smoke. She's coming our way now towards the commentary box.
Fog.
Stink of burning rubber in the commentary box in about 2 minutes time when it gets here. We're into the last 30 seconds or so of the session. We've got about half the cars out on track. Sheldon van der Linde improved again on the last lap, but that's only to 14th place. René Rast 13th, 0.07 of a second between them. Marco Wittmann, slightly quicker than his 2 teammates, is in 10th place with a 1:19.1. And then another improvement for Sheldon van der Linde puts him on a very similar pace to Marco. So he's crossed the line with a 1:19.159 as well. So up to 11th place now. So a pretty good few laps this for Sheldon. I mean, he's not in the top half of the field, but that is 3 laps of each been quicker than the one before, and the checkered flag is now out on the session as we ride on board with Nicky Tim in the SSR Performance Lamborghini, the number 94 machine, through the fastest part of the circuit now, 5th gear, 260 kilometres an hour, and the man looks like he's sitting down watching a very calm comedy programme on television. Looks like he's not a care in the world, as relaxed as you could possibly imagine.
In his happy place, I think we'll call that. I think it's been a fairly chilled session for most, I think, apart from Marco Wittmann, clearly. But I think FP2 tomorrow, I've said already, I think will be quite different, because there is an hour and 20 minutes between FP2 finishing and quali starting, and I think there will be a lot of feverish activity to get that set up during FP2, because they know what the conditions will be like for quali, so they'll have something a little solid to work on. So it's been quite a chilled free practice session, I'd say. Nothing too dramatic, but FP2 tomorrow morning I think will be a little bit more frenetic probably.
Yeah, well, 34.5 degrees is the current track temperature. Won't be anything like that for free practice 2 tomorrow morning, and it won't be much difference between the end of free practice 2 and an hour or so later the start of qualifying. So you're absolutely right. That's the one where they've really got to be busy and get out there and test everything is right. And also the setup you find on free practice 2 rather than today is probably what you're going to want for qualifying 1. This is more about finding the setup for an afternoon for a race, isn't it?
Yes, the conditions are potentially what it will be like for the race tomorrow afternoon. So yes, in the hot sunshine. This weather is forecast to continue throughout the weekend, but on the sun cream, if you're in the vicinity, come and join us, because there is nothing like it. You get the Sachsenring, you have an amazing view, a great place to come and watch some racing on a sunny weekend.
Absolutely right, and for Brian and I, who are both British, this is our summer, because we haven't had very much at home. It's been raining most of the year.
I had to swim to Heathrow yesterday.
It's the only reason I bought a coat was to get from the car to the airport yesterday.
Yes.
I knew I wanted to be here, and I probably need it to get back to the car when I get back on Sunday night. But there you go. So Kelvin van der Linde, only 14 laps in the session. Compare that to Marco Wittmann, who did 31 laps as well for Lucas Stoltz. But Kelvin van der Linde, it is that ends the day fastest, and that is not the first time we've said that in 2024. Kelvin van der Linde quickest in the Audi, 1:18.599, a tenth quicker than Thomas Preining. Lucas Auer popped himself up to 3rd place late on in the session in the Mercedes and was just over 2 tenths back. He got ahead of Jack Aitken, who was 4th. Maro Engel was 5th. Nicky Tim, Ricardo Feller, Jordan Pepper on his debut, Clement Schmidt and Marco Wittmann were the other drivers in the top 10. Sheldon van der Linde improved late on to get up to 11th place ahead of champion championship contender, or fellow championship contender, Mirko Bortolotti, who was there in 12th place. So that's it for the day. Tomorrow, we've got an early start, 8:35 local time for free practice 2. Can Lucas Auer continue his good form? Third quickest and going well at the end of that session, a 1 minute 18.862 second lap. A 10th quicker than him was Thomas Preining, still very much in the fight to defend his championship title from 2023. Did a 1:18.734. And the quickest of all was Kelvin van der Linde, the championship leader, who's in a good place at the moment. Can he keep the momentum going with 6 races to go in the DTM? He ends Friday here at the Sachsenring quickest, a 1:18.599. You're right on board with him now. And this early on in the session was the quickest lap of the session, around the 3.5 kilometres of the Sachsenring. So Kelvin van der Linde quickest on day 1, but we've got a compressed and a busy day 2 coming up with free practice 2 tomorrow morning, an hour or so after that qualifying, and in the afternoon the first of 2 races here at the Sachsenring. 6 races to go in DTM 2024. And we're no closer to finding out who is going to be the champion. It's going to be a great weekend here. From Brian Oliver and myself, Chris Hartley, that is just about it from the commentary box. We'll leave you then with a flying lap on board with Kelvin van der Linde here, the South African, charging around this 3.5 kilometre long Sachsenring circuit, barely putting a wheel wrong and lapping pretty much as quick as anybody lapped in any of the free practice sessions in 2023. He went out there, banged in a quick lap, and that was job done. We think he was just happy with the car. Whether he had an issue or not, we don't think he did. But Kelvin van der Linde knows he's got the pace, and this was him charging towards the final sector of the lap, out through turn 12 and going up out of the Saxon curve into turn 13 to head to the lap, and in a moment cross the finish line with what was the fastest lap of the session. So that's just about it from the Sachsenring from today, from Brian and from myself. Goodbye. Thank you for watching here at the Sachsenring, and hopefully you'll join us all again tomorrow for day 2 of the DTM. Goodbye for now.